Hi, I'm Raleigh Brown, and this is volume 2 of my little trilogy about soloing on the guitar. And in the last one we talked about scales, the major scale and the blues scale. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to apply those. Now, we're going to talk about a diatonic scale, which means that it's the major scale and the chords we're playing over are based on the major scale. Now, I'm going to use a rhythm track that has the C chord, the 1 chord, little figure, and then it'll have the 4 chord, and then it'll have the 5 chord, which are F and G, and then it'll go back to the 1 chord. The key is this: each of these chords, the C chord has C, E, and G are the notes in that chord. The F chord has F, A, and C, and the G chord has G, B, and D. Those are the chord tones in each of those chords, and when we play over them, it's a little bit like baseball, like running bases. You have the basses, which are the notes in the chord you're playing, and you have the bass paths, which are the passing tones, the notes in between the chord. So in the C chord, C is a bass, D is a bass path, E is a bass, F is the bass path, G is the bass, and then A and B are the bass paths. And what you want to do is, when you make up a phrase, a little sentence of music, you want to land on one of the basses in that chord. Now the trick is, they keep moving the basses on you. Every time that they change a chord, they also change which basses you should go to. So I'm going to put on a rhythm track here in a second and play over it, and we'll give you a little idea of a basic idea of how that works. So now here we go. We're going to have a little rhythm track. You hear that click? And that's the C chord. I'm going to play, end on a chord tone. Now it goes to the F. My chord tones are F, A, or C. Now G, G, or B, or D, and then back to C, E, G, or C. Okay, so it's going to go. Now the next thing we want to think about is that as you're playing over these changes, and we're just using the major scale right now, you want to really pay attention to making your music human, which means the first thing is phrasing, is putting things together into a sentence. You can listen to the way people talk and phrase a sentence on that. So if I say, listen to the way people talk, I could play, listen to the way people talk. That's why it's great to learn melodies of tunes that people sing. Listen to singers. And what I'm going to do is play a little bit and show you what it's like if I'm just playing scales, essentially, and then show you what it's like if I'm phrasing properly. Okay? Here we go. So here's just scales. We're going to put it together into some like musical sentences. So hopefully you can hear the difference in that, and you can choose, even if you're playing bluegrass, which is a hard driving thing with a lot of notes, you can still use phrasing. You may not use as much silence as you use, say, playing a blues or something like that. Now the other end we want to talk about this is that's the major scale, that was our 7 notes, and then we're going to have the blues scale, which, as you remember, has also the flat 3rd, the flat 5th, and the flat 7th in it. What I'm going to do is put on the scale, or the rhythm track again, and play with some blue notes in it. So we're using the major scale, but also maybe I'll play one time through with just the blues scale, and then another time through with using the blue notes judiciously. So here's just the blues scale. This time we're going to use the major scale with a blue note. So that's where you learn to marry these two things together. Our major scale and our blues scale. And by virtue of understanding where the notes from those scales fit into the tonality and how they contribute to the musical color, you can have a major sound and then a little bit of bluesiness in it when you want it. And again, this is true for almost any style short of jazz, and even including jazz to a certain extent, that you can have a blues feel, a kind of minor feel, and a kind of major feel all together. Okay? So that's going to be stage 2 here. And the next stage, we're going to talk about playing a chord progression, cycle of fourths chord progression, or cycle of fifths, and how you play over those chords that aren't related to the same scale. And there's a real easy way to get into that, and it'll lead you into kind of Django Reinhardt style stuff and Western swing, and then on into modern jazz if you wanted to do that. Okay, thanks for listening and stay tuned. Now, one other thing I should say here is that it's incumbent upon you and your own imagination to make up these phrases. Like, we all talk in phrases all the time, and the assumption that only some special musician can make them up and make them into music is a little bit silly. So if you can just hum a line of a song and then teach yourself to play that, then you're on the road. And what you need to do is do that a lot of times. If you make up one little line a day, in 7 days you'll have 7 lines. In a year you'll have forgotten most of what you've already learned. What are you going to do? Okay? Good deal.